Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Thinking Fast and Slow is a best-selling book written by Daniel Kahneman, a renowned psychologist and economist, that explores the way we think and make decisions. The book presents a comprehensive overview of Kahneman's research over several decades, which led to his Nobel Prize in economics in 2002. The book is divided into two parts: System 1 and System 2. System 1 is the fast, intuitive, and emotional way of thinking that we use most of the time, while System 2 is the slower, more deliberate, and logical way of thinking that we use when we need to solve complex problems. The author explores various cognitive biases that affect our decision-making, such as the availability heuristic, the confirmation bias, and the framing effect. He also discusses how emotions and context can influence our judgments, and provides practical examples and experiments to illustrate his points. There are many ideas from thinking fast and slow that can be applied in real life. Here are a few examples. 1. Be aware of cognitive biases. The book highlights various cognitive biases that can affect our decision-making, such as the confirmation bias, availability heuristic, and framing effect. By being aware of these biases, we can try to avoid them and make more rational decisions. The author discusses cognitive biases in multiple chapters throughout the book. However, Chapter 3, The Lazy Controller, is specifically dedicated to cognitive biases and how they affect our thinking and decision-making. Here's a summary of the chapter. In Chapter 3, the author explains that our thinking is often guided by two systems. System 1, which is fast, automatic, and intuitive, and System 2, which is slow, deliberate, and effortful. While System 1 thinking helps us navigate the world quickly and efficiently, it also leads to cognitive biases that can affect our decision-making. The author discusses several cognitive biases in this chapter, including the availability heuristic, which is the tendency to judge the likelihood of an event based on how easily examples of it come to mind; the representativeness heuristic, which is the tendency to make judgments based on stereotypes and generalizations; and the anchoring effect, which is the tendency to be influenced by initial information when making subsequent judgments. He also describes the confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and to ignore information that contradicts them. This bias can lead us to make poor decisions and miss important opportunities. The author concludes the chapter by suggesting that we can overcome cognitive biases by being aware of them and by engaging in System 2 thinking. By slowing down and carefully considering our options, we can avoid snap judgments and make better decisions. 2. Use System 2 thinking. System 2 thinking is the slower, more deliberate, and logical way of thinking that we use when we need to solve complex problems. By consciously engaging in System 2 thinking, we can make better decisions and avoid snap judgments. Chapter 4 of the book is specifically dedicated to System 2 thinking and how it can be used to make better decisions. Here's a summary of the chapter. The author begins by describing System 2 thinking as the slow, deliberate, and effortful way of thinking that we use to solve complex problems. He explains that while System 2 thinking can be more accurate and rational than System 1 thinking, it requires more mental energy and can be easily overwhelmed. The chapter goes on to describe several experiments that demonstrate the benefits of System 2 thinking. For example, in one study, participants were asked to solve a math problem while also remembering a 7-digit number. Those who were able to remember the number were more likely to solve the math problem correctly, suggesting that mental effort can improve cognitive performance. The author also discusses the importance of attention and concentration in System 2 thinking. He explains that multitasking and distractions can impair our ability to engage in System 2 thinking and make good decisions. Finally, the chapter concludes with some practical advice for using System 2 thinking effectively. The author suggests that we should be aware of our mental energy levels and avoid making important decisions when we are mentally fatigued. He also recommends breaking down complex problems into smaller, more manageable tasks, and taking breaks to allow our minds to rest and recharge. 3. Take breaks. The book suggests that our ability to make good decisions can be affected by mental fatigue. To combat this, take breaks and allow your mind to rest before making important decisions. The importance of taking breaks is mentioned throughout the book. Here's a summary of the relevant sections. In Chapter 4, the author discusses the role of mental effort in System 2 thinking. He explains that System 2 thinking requires more mental energy than System 1 thinking and can be easily overwhelmed. He suggests that taking breaks can help us avoid mental fatigue and improve our ability to engage in System 2 thinking. In Chapter 7, the author discusses the importance of rest and recovery in maintaining mental performance. He describes an experiment in which participants were asked to complete a series of cognitive tasks without any breaks. Participants who were allowed to take breaks during the tasks performed better than those who worked straight through. Later in the book, the author discusses the impact of cognitive biases on decision-making. He explains that mental fatigue can make us more susceptible to cognitive biases and recommends taking breaks to avoid this. 4. Consider alternative perspectives. Our natural tendency is to stick to our own beliefs and perspectives, but the book suggests that we can improve our decision-making by considering alternative perspectives. This can help us see the bigger picture and avoid confirmation bias. In Chapter 3, the author discusses the confirmation bias, which is the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and to ignore information that contradicts them. He explains that this bias can lead us to make poor decisions and miss important opportunities. To avoid the confirmation bias, he suggests considering alternative perspectives and actively seeking out information that contradicts our beliefs. In Chapter 12, the author discusses the power of stories in shaping our perceptions and beliefs. He explains that stories are often more compelling than statistics or data and can lead us to ignore important information. To avoid this, he suggests considering alternative perspectives and looking for evidence that contradicts the story we are being told. Later in the book, the author discusses the importance of empathy in decision-making. He explains that taking the perspective of others can help us make better decisions and avoid biases. To do this, he suggests actively imagining ourselves in the situation of others and considering their perspectives. 5. Pay attention to details. The book emphasizes that small details can have a big impact on our decisions. By paying attention to details, we can avoid errors and make more accurate decisions. In Chapter 3, the author discusses the availability heuristic, which is the tendency to judge the likelihood of events based on how easily examples come to mind. He explains that this bias can lead us to overestimate the likelihood of rare events and to ignore important details. To avoid the availability heuristic, he suggests paying attention to details and actively seeking out information that may be less available but more relevant. In Chapter 9, the author discusses the anchoring bias, which is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive when making a decision. He explains that this bias can lead us to ignore important details and to make inaccurate judgments. To avoid the anchoring bias, he suggests paying attention to details and actively seeking out additional information before making a decision. Later in the book, the author discusses the importance of attention and concentration in decision-making. He explains that distractions can impair our ability to pay attention to details and to engage in System 2 thinking. To avoid this, he suggests eliminating distractions and focusing on the task at hand. Overall, Thinking Fast and Slow is a fascinating and enlightening book that sheds light on the complexities of human decision-making. By being aware of cognitive biases, using System 2 thinking, considering alternative perspectives, and paying attention to details, we can make more accurate and informed decisions. Whether you're a business leader, a policymaker, or simply a curious reader, this book is a must-read for anyone interested in how our minds work. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the content and found it valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more great videos in the future. See you in the next one.